I'm not here to put fear into you. I want to empower you with knowledge. All of this is about empowerment. It is about you as a parent becoming your family's primary healthcare provider. It's about you taking responsibility for their well-being, not the doctor, not the state, not the government, and not Big Pharma. You. This podcast is called Reconditioned because this is the place where you'll learn how to truly recondition your entire life. Where other wellness podcasts or platforms focus on one particular area of wellness or inner growth, Reconditioned is a one-stop shop for all of it, so that you can get all the information you need to heal and up-level the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of your life in one place. Because that's what I needed when I was healing from the arthritis I had from the age of 2 that left me disabled by 18. I got myself to a place of complete wellness after a very long journey of immersion into the world of healing, where I learned how to heal the whole self. My purpose now is about bringing that to you, and my Rise membership is an extension of that. For women who want to take their wellness and growth to the next level, there really is nothing out there like it. You'll be part of a global community of like-minded women with access to 14 modules that literally take you through everything you ever need to learn in order to bring your life to a place of balance and abundance. With group coaching calls with me, personalized support, community book club, and so much more. Rise becomes part of your life, your lifestyle, enabling you to thrive in the ways you always dreamed, with me right there beside you, championing you through your journey. It's not always open for enrollment, so if you're hearing this now, it's open and ready for you to enroll. Just go to the show notes for the link or visit laurenvakneen.co.uk/rise. Welcome back to Reconditioned. And for those who don't know, this is my Rise series, basically a snazzy way of saying these are my solo non-guest episodes where I offer some spiritual or self-growth or targeted health optimization tips to hopefully help you to rise. If you are new here, welcome. I am so happy you found this podcast. We are a growing community of 200,000 now, believe it or not. And I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And if you're an OG listener, thank you for sticking with me, for still being here. If you are a newbie, I'm really happy you found this little corner of the podcast world. I hope it offers you something that enhances or enriches your life. And this is just me. I mean, we had a whole season in a podcast studio, which was really snazzy and really fun and looked really good. But I didn't have the time raising children, running businesses, the podcast, everything I'm doing to find time to schedule in with the studio. If I'm honest, it was too difficult. And I thought to myself, what do my listeners want? And do I need to kill myself to give them me in a studio, or is me in my little office in my house enough? And I concluded that this is enough. And actually, I quite like it. I quite like being here with my mic, my own laptop, and some recording equipment, and just me and you, basically. It's no different for me. So I hope it's no different for you and you enjoy it just as much. The content's the same. But yeah, feels more intimate. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll get back to the studio. For now, this is how I can bring the episodes to you while giving you the best of me. So that's where we're at the moment. So we did a little thing at the beginning of the year where we surveyed our clients from the Rise membership and our audience as a whole. And by the way, if you're running an online business, surveys are a great little tool to help you figure out what your people want. So here I am giving you what you want. So what I do is so broad and far-reaching because in order to heal one part of you, you have to heal the whole self. And in my journey to healing from disability, it didn't work when I just focused on just the physical healing or just the emotional or just the spiritual. It had to be a dedication to a healing of the whole self, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Now, because I teach everything from inner child work to shadow work, self-love, nervous system regulation, purpose coaching, spiritual guidance. I mean, guys, the list is endless. All of it is available within the Rise membership, of course. That's what I created it for. Now, because of this, I give you a lot of different stuff. But when we surveyed our audience about what you're really wanting from being here, it turned out a huge number of our audience were here for the health optimization stuff. I guess probably because of my story of my recovery, my healing. But now that doesn't mean I won't be giving you all the other goodies, because that's why I'm here doing what I do, because I know that we all need all of it if we're going to heal and prevent dis-ease and live in purpose. But I decided to do this episode on health optimization for kids because you guys really seem to enjoy this sort of content. And I know that those of you with kids really want to find ways to keep them healthy naturally. And I want to be able to support you in that. So because if you're a parent, literally nothing is more important than keeping your kids healthy, right? So let me give you what I got. Fun fact, humans take in more information in one day now than they did in their entire lives in the 1700s. No wonder we're overwhelmed. Our brains and bodies simply haven't evolved to manage this level of stress. And until that evolution happens, if we want to be well in mind and body, we need things that help alleviate this stress. For me, one of the key tools in my daily wellness toolkit that does this is the Sensate. And if you've been here a while, you'll know how genuinely obsessed I am with this product. It is a piece of health tech that fits in the palm of your hand, and it basically sends infrasonic waves through the chest to activate the vagus nerve and calm the autonomic nervous system while you listen to the specially composed audio within the app. I usually use the Sensate for 10 to 20 minutes before I sleep to reduce cortisol levels, calm my brainwave states from the hectic day, and send me into a deep sleep. Clients or friends of mine who have a Sensate have told me that their sleep has never been so good. People who usually struggle with sleep just wake up in the same position they went to sleep in. Everyone needs a Sensate, in my opinion, and I particularly recommend it to anyone who suffers from overwhelm or anxiety, and anyone who wants to deepen their meditation practice. And you can get £30 off the Sensate by visiting getsensate.com and using code Lauren30. That's GETSENSATE.com, Lauren30. Thank you so much to Sensate for supporting our mission here at Reconditioned. So there are 3 top tips I want you to remember when it comes to optimizing your kids' health. We mitigate where we can. Your children are not perfect specimens of creatures that will adhere to everything you want. And the main rule to live by is reduce exposure to toxicity. So let's start with the first one. My biggest motto when it comes to health is this: mitigate where you can. What does that mean? Well, if we live in a world, we live in a world where it's no longer easy to stay clean and pure and toxin free, right? They literally do everything they can to prevent us from staying healthy. Cloud seeding, what they put in the water, how the food is grown, the reliance on pharmaceuticals, all of it. But firstly, I'm not here to make you focus on that, because my fundamental value is that I don't come from a place of fear when I'm teaching or guiding anything. As soon as we fear something, we lower our vibration and we make ourselves more susceptible to illness. So it defeats the object of us being here for health. And if you want to know more about that and about fear and the lessons I've learned on that, and more about the spiritual stuff, go back to my episode about I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago, about lessons I've learned on my shamanic apprenticeship. So your spiritual approach to this is just as important, okay? So I'm not here to put fear into you. I want to empower you with knowledge. All of this is about empowerment. It is about you as a parent becoming your family's primary healthcare provider. It's about you taking responsibility for their well-being, not the doctor, not the state, not the government, and not Big Pharma. You. Does that come with responsibility? Yes. If you're not here for that, go listen to a football or beauty podcast, my friend. Staying healthy and conscious and aligned takes effort. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but you have to be able to surrender to the fact that it's not always easy or without responsibility. So what I want is to empower you with knowledge and tools so you can go away and empower yourself even more by having a house filled with natural remedies and a brain filled with ways on how to prevent and heal illness, and a heart filled with the desire to take this further by continuing to research yourself. You don't just listen to what I say, go do your own research. So for the first thing I wanted to say, to nutshell it a bit, we empower ourselves with knowledge so that we can prevent and heal what we can. Because we can't avoid everything. I can't avoid the aluminium being sprayed into the air through cloud seeding right now. I can't avoid my neighbour's Wi-Fi even if I turn mine off at night. I can't avoid what my children eat at school. You get the gist. But what I can do is mitigate where I can. So because there are so many things I can't avoid, I feel it's my responsibility to take full control of the things that I can. I am relentless about that and I feel extremely strongly about it. But what I can't control, I surrender. I don't hold fear on it. I let it go in the hope that what I am doing will be enough to keep us healthy. So first rule, we mitigate where we can by empowering ourselves with knowledge and expertise. Second thing I want to say is that children are not perfect recipients of what we want to do with them and give to them. Like we go into pregnancy like, oh, look at me, amazing earth mama, making my own sourdough starters, making jam with berries I foraged and doing pregnancy yoga and meditating through my home birth. And then your kids come along and slap you in the face with a big fat reality check. And yes, all those things were me. I'm speaking to myself. So I'm okay to laugh at myself because the reality of parenting is very different. I honestly think my son, who is 8 now, was sent to teach me patience and surrender and show me that however many ideas I might have around health optimization and however much I've learned and studied, none of it matters to him. He's come with his own blueprint and his own journey. And he's not on board with a lot of the stuff I want. And not because he doesn't want to be, because he actually really seems to enjoy learning about it and always says he's grateful that I always have solutions for health stuff. But he has a sensory aversion to food, which has prevented me from doing half the stuff I set out to do with him. So the point is that children won't always let us do what we want when it comes to their health. And I've learned not to force it, not to be in fear around it. It just makes it worse. And if you're like me and you have a child who can be challenging when it comes to this stuff, take everything I say with not a pinch of salt, but do as much of it as you can, but don't drive yourself mad, implement what you can when you can. Don't stress yourself about it because that lowers the child's frequency into that of dis-ease, in itself. So I genuinely think also that my son was sent as he is to teach me about judgment. If he'd been this perfect child when it came to health, who ate all the foods and did all the things and it all came naturally, I could easily have been one of those annoying, judgy mums that could have been like, oh, well, if you didn't feed him that in the first place, Sharon, he wouldn't have known about it and, you wouldn't be in this position. I don't really know anyone called Sharon. I don't know why I used that name. I'm seeing a lot of memes at the moment about Sharon. I don't know what that's about. But basically you get my point. I could have been so judgy. So maybe he's like this so I can know that even me with all my information and all this expertise of 22 years of study, my child doesn't want to know about it. It ain't going to happen. So just to give you a bit of background on that, my son has a severe sensory issue with food and he's never knowingly eaten a vegetable. He was, I'm saying this in quote marks, diagnosed with something called ARFID, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, when he was 4. But I hate labels because they're so binary and often doesn't take the child themselves into account. And it's also a way to fit children into a box when medicine doesn't really have the answers. And I'm not into that. The only thing that's helped in terms of diagnoses is going to an OT, an occupational therapist, and understanding that there are 2 senses in him that haven't developed fully. So we now understand this. And so we have some tools. Seriously, the irony, right? I'm a nutritionist and health coach. I have a podcast about health and I write about health for magazines. And I get up and do talks about it, and my son won't even eat a piece of cucumber. So there you are. I am just as in the shit as you are, my friend. A good place to start, right? Basically, do what you can. Okay, so the last one of these is what I live by, is the idea of reducing exposure to toxicity. If you remind yourself of this with everything, you'll make better decisions. But don't go mental with your poor kids, because they're living in the modern world and they need a bit of grace. My kids have ice cream on holiday and the rest of it. But we just do as much as we can to reduce their exposure to toxicity wherever we possibly can. So I'm going to tell you the daily, weekly, and monthly things I do with my kids. And at the end, I'm going to share something very special. So I approached my friends about this. We have an amazing little community of about 20 of us who all raise our kids holistically. This is basically my friendship group. So I'm super lucky that I'm around others who do this. And I asked them if they'd offer their top tip or one thing they swear by or want to pass on to others when it comes to raising children holistically. So I'll share those with you at the end. And for anything I mention here, I will pop links into the show notes so you can access it all easily. So just have a trawl through the show notes at the end. Okay, let's start. Number 1, we organic as much as possible. Now, my daughter is fine, but she copies him, of course, because she's only 5 and doesn't want to eat what we're eating because she sees what he's having. So she'll have vegetables and different things to him, but not always. So what we do is the things he will eat, we try to get the best versions of. So for example, his favorite meal is jacket potato with beans and cheese. So the potatoes are organic. The cheese is organic. I use organic, excellent quality butter to get those butter fats into him to help absorb those fat-soluble vitamins. And the beans are fiber, so that's great. And, I get the salt and sugar-free ones. And he loves chips. Honestly, he's basically a potato at this point. So I make him chips using organic potatoes and coconut oil and some Celtic sea salt for minerals. And then I just put it in the oven. We have brown rice pasta instead of white. So that's the first one. It's, get the best you can of what they will eat. And as much as humanly possible, organic. Because for every piece of food that's not organic, they're ingesting some sort of chemical that taxes the liver. And you can avoid that, right? We're mitigating where we can. Okay, number 2, how do I get nutrients into them then? Again, I do this through the things that they will eat. So we used to make them smoothies like 4 or 5 times a week. And honestly, this was my savior. It was my absolute savior. It tasted amazing for them because I put, bananas and dates and whatever. So they liked it. They loved, it tasted good, but it was also packed with things like collagen and superfoods like beetroot powder and chia and red phenol powder and greens powders. And this was the thing, or the one thing really I felt gave him enough nutrients to get through the day. And if he didn't like the food at school, at least he had that. But he gave that up last summer and now we don't even have that. And by the way, the recipe to the smoothie is on the website if you like it. Maybe your kids will have it, even if mine don't anymore. So we don't have that. So I am a big fan of raw milk. I think there are so many benefits to amazing quality raw organic milk from A2 cows. Now, of course, he won't drink a cup of milk. And in fact, he won't have any breakfast at all anymore. So every morning I put the milk, a spoon of raw cacao powder, which is high in magnesium and other minerals, great, and a drizzle of honey or maple into the blender. And he gets to start his day with chocolate milk. He's ecstatic because he thinks he's having chocolate milk every day. And I'm happy because I've got a full cup of raw milk into him, which is going to help his bones, his teeth, his gut, his immunity. My daughter will often have a breakfast with it, but if not, then at least they've had that. And they'll usually have a banana in the car on the way to school. So, and if that's the best I can do, it's the best I can do. Now, my goal for him is to have the milk along with an organic banana and an organic apple. So he starts his day with some nutrients and some minerals and salts and sugars. And in an ideal world, I'd like it to be a protein and a fat to start the day. That's how I start my day. But again, we do what we can. When they're watching TV as well, is another point. They're a little bit more malleable. How awful is that? So this is the time where I can put a plate of fruit next to them and they'll kind of mindlessly munch it. And I'll give my daughter some carrots and pepper to the same effect. So the idea with nutrients is, again, Get it into them where you can, and wherever you are able to, make sure you're doing it in those moments. One of the holistic living challenges I spent years researching and trying to figure out was how to keep teeth healthy without fluoride and which fluoride-free natural toothpaste to use. I've found a few over the years that I've liked, but I've finally found a brand that does a toothpaste that me and my husband love, and a kids one that not only has all the perfect ingredients to keep their teeth and gums healthy naturally, but that they love. The toothpastes are by Wellness, which is the brand created by Katie Wells, aka Wellness Mama, who we love here at Reconditioned. I'm such a fan of these toothpastes, and I would love you to give them a go. And no, they're not as cheap as Colgate, and for good reason. But you can get 10% off by visiting health.com/LaurenV10. That's health with an F, HEALF.com/LaurenV10. And that will apply a 10% discount to anything in your basket, not just wellness products. Please report back to me and let me know how you find these toothpastes. Okay, vitamins and supplements. So this is probably the question I get asked the most. So I'm going to go through what I give my own kids and what else I recommend depending on your kids' health. And I'll make sure to link all the products I speak about in the show notes. So, okay, so the first thing is my absolute non-negotiables that I think all kids need, regardless of how healthy or unhealthy they are, what they eat or don't eat or anything else. Just like with adults, those two things are cod liver oil and magnesium. Now, I've told you about Braxton's eating stuff. You'd think his teeth wouldn't be great, but every time we go back to our biological dentist, he can't believe how strong Brax's teeth are. And I honestly 100% put it down to the amount of omegas he's always had. I've given him cod liver oil since he was a toddler, and I try to give it to them every day. It honestly makes so much difference to their health. And magnesium, aside from the fact that our soil is now depleted of it, so we don't get nearly as much as our ancestors used to, so we do need to supplement. My kids don't get enough through food either. So I rub their legs in with transdermal magnesium 4 to 5 nights a week. It can sting, so I rub it on their legs once they're already asleep. I also give them Epsom salt baths 3 times a week for added magnesium, and they now take the Seeking Health multivitamin, which has some magnesium in it also. Okay, so let's talk about multivitamins, really important. Most are horrendous. These awful multivitamins that are marketed to kids because they're in the shape of Peppa Pig and they're bright pink. Usually from these brands that have these famous people on their adverts on the back of buses to promote their menopause or women's or men's or pregnancy products or whatever. They all use synthetic vitamins. The quality is horrendous. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole thing about how to choose vitamins, but essentially around 70% of us have certain gene polymorphisms that mean our bodies convert synthetic vitamins into toxins, and that none of the vitamin itself gets absorbed. And this is particularly prevalent for pregnant women because they get given these awful folic acid supplements that use synthetic folic acid. The women's liver can't utilize it. It doesn't get to the baby, or it harms the baby, and then the woman miscarries, or the baby has deformities or something's happened. Another story altogether, but remember, for you and your kids, always choose non-synthetic vitamins. Methylfolate for folate, methylcobalamin for B12. I use Seeking Health because they're specifically formulated for people with MTHFR in mind, so all the products are methylated. Okay, so that's cod liver oil, magnesium, and a good quality multivitamin. Now, my child who won't chew a cucumber because of the texture will now take capsules, which has been a real win for me because it's easier than giving him the liquid fish oil. But when I did, I would mix it with elderberry syrup to make it more palatable. I swear by elderberry syrup for when immunity is low. So if they're sick, if people around them are sick, whatever. I used to use pucker, but they've been out of stock for ages. I have no idea why. So I use an elderberry tincture now, and I put it in a juice if I have to. And whenever I can get elderberry syrup, I do get it. I have made it in the past, quite a lot actually. And if you can do, it's just super labor intensive. So it depends on your time restraints, but really worth doing if you can. I actually also have a recipe for elderberry gummies, which are a great thing for kids. And, you can buy those little gummy molds and put them in different shapes, which kids like. So I'll link that in the show notes as well. So I also try to give them whole food vitamin C as often as they'll take it. The capsules of this don't taste great a lot of the time, so sometimes it's harder. I used to put it in their smoothie, which they won't have anymore. So, but I try to get whole food vitamin C into them where I can. And the other thing I give them regularly is medicinal mushroom syrups. So I use a company called Terra. They do 2 amazing syrups that use agave. So they're sweet. They don't taste like mushroom, I promise. One is called Dr. Immune 5, and it has 5 of the most potent medicinal mushrooms for immunity. I give them this when they're sick or when they're under the weather or when I know that there's something going around. And there's another one called Dr. GB, which is for the gut-brain axis. It really supports gut health, and I swear by this for my son especially, who obviously isn't able to support his gut as much as he'd like. If there are stomach bugs going around, we up the dosage of this immediately. It seems to have worked. It's also great for my daughter, who has a bit of a tendency to eczema as her body's method of detoxing, and it's been great for her. Like, the gut feeds the brain, we know this. So if the gut is suffering, we're more likely to see symptoms of what people now call ADHD, or, low focus, concentration, all the other behavioral issues we see. Working from the gut is the first and most important thing we can do to help with that. And lastly, as a daily supplement, I give them either a probiotic or Ion Gut, both there to support the gut microbiome specifically. Okay, number 4, what to do when they're sick. So the things I keep at home for this are elderberry syrup, as I said, liposomal vitamin C, which is sachets of vitamin C liquid delivered through liposomes, which helps get it into the cells quicker. So that's why we take this version when we're not well. I use a brand called Zuki because it also tastes really good. And instead of a whole sachet, I'll give them half. If they're really unwell, I'll give them half twice or 3 times a day even. And at this point, you can also give whole food C as well if they'll take it. And the rule with vitamin C, especially when ill and you're trying to get the most possible, is to take to bowel tolerance. As soon as the tummy goes a little bit funny, that's when you know you've had enough. And you can't overdose with vitamin C, so you don't need to worry about it. It's water soluble, not fat soluble like other vitamins. So it comes out in the pee, which is why we need it every day, as the body isn't making or storing it. When they're sick, I also cut up an onion and I leave it in their rooms or next to them if they're downstairs, because onions pull the toxins from around us. So it said that they'll pull the toxins from around the child into itself. And this is why you should never cut an onion and use it a few days later. Always use it immediately. I diffuse essential oils a lot, like doTERRA's On Guard, which is like an immune protective blend, oregano, sometimes frankincense. I use frankincense a lot for myself. And I try to get them to drink chamomile tea with manuka honey. And if you can get them to eat some roasted garlic, that's amazing. So for fevers, if they have a fever, I personally never ever bring it down with antipyretics. It just suppresses the virus back into the body and disables the body from doing what it's meant to do with that fever. And for people who do this when their kids are super young, every time they have a fever, that child's immune system won't mature effectively. And you'll see because of that, kids like that will get sick more often. Just look around you and it's really easy to observe. The whole purpose of a fever is to let the body burn high enough that it burns off the virus. It plays a very important role. A child whose immune system has been supported from birth will often have very healthy fevers where they burn for a day or 2 and then it will start coming down. And when they're fevering, don't force food. Always remember that thing of feed a cold, starve a fever. When they have a fever, the body needs to put all its efforts into the virus. And the moment digestion comes into play, it gets distracted. Loads of fluids so they don't get dehydrated, but don't do the mum thing where you get nervous if they're not eating and force them to eat. They'll know when they need to eat. And then it's light, soft foods with sugars and salts like apples, pears, bananas, rice with some cinnamon and Celtic salt, some chicken soup, some coconut water. And coconut water basically just the whole time they're unwell, to keep them hydrated if they're not eating, or a bit of juice, coconut water preferably. Put them in loose cotton clothing with a window slightly open, and they shouldn't be overheated, but nor should they catch a chill. But ventilation is so important. Stuffy rooms are not conducive to healing. So sorry to interrupt the episode, but this really is a public health service announcement. If you're trying to improve or optimize your health, you might be missing the crucial ingredient that most people don't realize they need. You see, it's not vitamin D you need to be supplementing. The mineral we are most lacking and need so much more of in order to be able to synthesize that vitamin D from the sun is copper. Without copper, which gives us retinol, we literally cannot absorb the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, and K. And the iron in our bodies is not distributed effectively because copper is what transports iron around the blood. So it's not that we're anemic, it's that we are low in copper. Without adequate absorption of all these minerals, your health can never be optimal. So many people I've worked with feel like they've tried everything, and simply introducing Recuperate IQ, which is a very specific formulation of copper and other ingredients, improved their health within weeks. It's formulated by Morley Robbins, who created the root cause protocol that hundreds of thousands of people around the world have healed as a result of. I've personally been doing it for 8 years. This supplement is finally available in the UK after years of me trying to get hold of it, and you can now get it at yourhealthbasket.co.uk using code LaurenV10 for a 10% discount. That's yourhealthbasket.co.uk and code LaurenV10. Fevers are really important, and how you manage them will have an impact on the maturity of your child's immune system. So do take your approach to it seriously. My kids have never not once, been given Calpol for a fever, and I never will. And this doesn't mean I'm sitting back and doing nothing while they have a fever. They sleep with me if they have a fever so I can keep an eye on them. And I do all the things I mentioned above, being very present with them. It's not comfortable for them, of course. And so our natural instinct as parents is to try and give them something to help bring it down because we want them to not feel pain. But the discomfort of fever is part of the child's maturation process. There are some tribes that really believe that fevers and teething pains are part of the child's process out of kind of the ether, out of being in that state where they're very connected to the other world and into being connected to this human life. So it's just a thought process, but I kind of like it. Loads of rest, cuddles, skin on skin. Don't send them back to school the day after the fever's better. Because, I know that some people got to get back to work. I get it. But the longer you give them to actually recover, the stronger their immune system will be, or their immune system will be in a stronger place to be able to manage any of the stuff that's around them. There's a range of homeopathic remedies that can really help the process as well, but I'm not going to name the ones I use because I don't want you to blindly use homeopathic remedies. It requires a bit of research to know which remedies to use. And that segues really nicely into number 5, which is have an amazing holistic practitioner or practitioners you can work with. I have an incredible homeopath, and if I can't solve what the problem is with what I already have at home, because I do have many tools at home that I empower myself with, I'll contact her. And we all go to see her every few months, or if something comes up. And having a naturopath is also amazing. You are your children's primary healthcare provider, but you do also need support. And for me, having my homeopath on the other end of the phone means I always have support if I don't know which remedy to give, or if I need more guidance, which often we do. And our kids also see a cranial osteopath, which is another great one. Number 6, detoxing. Now, this is kind of in the daily section, but only at specific times of the year. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we live in a world that isn't too supportive of health. There's a lot of toxins everywhere and a lot of heavy metals especially. And if your child is in any way on the spectrum or has behavioral issues or cognitive challenges, likelihood is they have too much heavy metal content in their brain. And there are heavy metals in vaccines, which is usually the first cause, but it's also being sprayed in the sky and it's in the water, so really hard to avoid. So what I do is I do a heavy metal detox for my kids twice a year using a product that I will link in the show notes for you. It's 2 products that come together, a spray and a dropper. And if you're experiencing cognitive challenges with your child, I'd recommend starting with a 3-month course to kind of really detox. It's really effective. I highly recommend regular detoxes. I do it for my kids every few months, and I honestly think we don't have a choice at this point with all the heavy metals around us, and we're seeing children's behavior change so drastically and their brains change so drastically. I think we need to do everything we can to help their brains detox heavy metals. And Epsom salt baths help this too, so regularly doing that. Number 7, go to home remedies. So one thing I get asked a lot is about the things I keep at home, because I was talking about having an arsenal of wellness tools at home so that I'm never relying on anyone else to help heal my children. So often I'll tell friends or clients to have certain things at home, but because their child isn't sick at that time, they just forget. And then the child's sick and it's hard to get out or wait for a delivery, and then you don't have the products. So part of living holistically and raising children holistically is being prepared, arming yourself, researching ahead of time, not waiting until something goes wrong. I'd been researching vaccines for like a decade before I even got pregnant. The time and effort you put into your research will 100% determine how easy and natural this feels to you when something arises. So here are my favorites. Elderberry syrup. I know I've mentioned it twice, but honestly, keep it at home. Manuka honey also. Get yourself a homeopathy kit. Now, you can't buy them online because governments don't want us to be healthy, so they joined up with Big Pharma to make sure that they'd make it super hard for us to access this stuff. But it doesn't matter. You can call Ainsworth's or Helios homeopathic pharmacies and just order one over the phone. Helios do the basic 36 kit, which is great. And the Ainsworth's one, I think, has 42 of the most common remedies. I've got both kits. I've also got a pet kit, the birthing kit, and all the other hundreds of remedies I've kept over the years that my homeopath has prescribed. Homeopathic medicine is a potent healer that helps the body figure out how to heal itself. It's gentle and effective. It has no side effects. Like, really, it's a no-brainer. I'll also link a book from a client of mine who actually went on to become a super successful homeopath and wrote an incredible book about which remedies to give for what. It's like a really easy to follow book. So I'll link that as well. I have a bunch of essential oils that I diffuse or use topically also, which I recommend. And I personally use doTERRA because you want to get high quality essential oils. They're very, very, what's the word? Potent, but they're strong. Like, you need to make sure that you're using good quality. And then there's a bunch of herbal tinctures I keep around. So lungwort for coughs, also propolis and pine for coughs, special immune tinctures with pine and olive leaf and echinacea. I keep rescue remedy and usually put it in their water if I remember, which reminds me, I also add trace minerals to their water. I have a bunch of creams and ointments also. So arnica for bruising, calendula for cuts and scrapes, comfrey for anything bone related. I've literally got this image of some of you sitting here now, like taking furious notes. I hope this isn't coming too fast. Again, you know, my Rise membership is a place where all this stuff is available to you in easy access. So that is an option for you. I also love doTERRA's Air Vapor Stick. So it's a bit like Vicks, but without all the rubbish in it. So any natural vapor stick to have around for coughs and bad chests. I also keep Thuya homeopathic cream and tincture around because this one's great for anything warty like molluscums or verrucas, which will, you know, inevitably make an appearance if you have young kids. Making a huge batch of bone broth and keeping it in smaller batches in the freezer is a must. You get it out during the winter as much as possible, a cup a day even, or if anyone's ill. I really like the Wellness Mama bone broth recipe for this. All right, number 8 is things to avoid. Antibacterial hand washes kill off the healthy microbiome on a child's skin that helps keep them healthy. Just remember that pharmaceutical drugs are a band-aid, right? They're never going to heal the problem. So look for a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor, or find ways to boost immunity to help the child heal naturally. And anything that is killing off their microbiome, like, you know, those hand washes, anything that's suppressing anything, generally we want to try and avoid where we can. And the same goes for antibiotics. Antibiotics destroy the gut microbiome, which is the very thing that helps boost our immune system. Now, I'm aware that there is a place for antibiotics. There absolutely is a place for antibiotics. I'm very grateful that antibiotics exist, but 90% of the time we use them, we're using them pointlessly, and it's not needed. And the immune system has all the tools it needs to be able to heal and regenerate. And in using the antibiotics where they're not truly needed, we are killing the gut microbiome, which essentially reduces immune function. So, kind of counterintuitive. Baby formulas also do this. They contain industrial seed oils, not to mention synthetic vitamins and other horrible ingredients. So if you're pregnant and listening to this, please get breastfeeding support and read The Womanly Art of Breastfeeding, because it tells you everything you need to know about why breastfeeding is so important for your child's long-term health. And also avoid conventional sunscreens because they contain carcinogenic ingredients. And that's a really important point. And so as we go into number 9, where instead of talking about what else to avoid, because see that focuses on fear and I don't want to be guiding you from that place, let's speak about things to include. So moving on from natural sunscreens or kind of conventional sunscreens, get your kids out in the sun. Don't fear the sun. The more you give your kids healthy foods and, they're not having industrial seed oils, and the more they're detoxed, the less they're likely to burn. I know it's crazy, right? But it's true. And I'm not saying let your kids be out in 40-degree weather with nothing on. Like, you have to be sensible about it. I've got a really great article that I wrote on my website about how to be safe in the sun when it's hot. The point is our bodies need to see the sun in order to be able to absorb and synthesize vitamin D. So it's important that our kids get out into the sun, and you can use natural sunscreens, mineral-based sunscreens that aren't toxic. And I highly recommend this, but always let your kids have at least 20 minutes sunscreen-free time in the sun before you put anything on them, so that their bodies can start absorbing that vitamin D first. All right, next is natural fluoride-free toothpastes. It's a great start. Natural fluoride-free toothpastes. You don't want fluoride. It is a neurotoxin. So I will link all of these, as I've mentioned. Toxic shampoos and body products as well. Store-bought bubble baths, usually filled with rubbish, so ditch those. And another thing, if we're thinking about toxicity, is reducing EMFs in the home. So make sure you turn off Wi-Fi at night, turning off all switches and TVs on standby and stuff like that. And I would highly recommend investing in a Somavedic, which is a mechanism that reduces EMFs in the home from Wi-Fi and 4 and 5G. And it also restructures dead water, so that's great. So again, I'll link this in the show notes with a discount code. Okay, number 10, the last one is a really positive one. It is joy. Bring joy into your children's lives. Something I've seen for years in health optimization circles is people who literally think it's all about the physical health, and they drive themselves and their kids mad. We need balance and we need joy. Raising kids in a stressful household will increase cortisol levels, which will in turn weaken their immune systems, which means that you being a calm parent as much as you can is actually part of your natural immunity protocol. Kids coming from homes where they're highly medicated, fed highly processed, sugar-laden non-foods, and have a lot of stress and shouting at home will have lower immunities. And not just because one of those things, but because of all of them. Okay, so I think I've covered the main stuff that I do for my kids. So, I mean, I probably have left something out. I'm just trying to think. But that's, I think, the main stuff. So I'm going to read out the messages from my friends when I asked them what their top tip or their favorite thing they'd like to share about raising holistic kids is. So here we go. First one's from Shivani. I still use the concoction my mum used to give me every time I started feeling unwell. Turmeric, black pepper, salt and ghee mixed with water. So she says it's maybe the placebo effect, but I swear by it. Excuse me, sorry I keep clearing my throat. Maybe I should have some water. Okay. Katie R, because we have two Katies. She says, this might be too crunchy. How very dare you, Katie? How can anything be too crunchy on this podcast? I make a huge batch of elderberry syrup every winter, and the kids have a teaspoon a few days a week and lots more if they're feeling ill or there's something going around at school. I also use a load of liposomal vitamin C and D. Simi says, homeopathic first aid kit for sure, but my best tip is to teach your children from a young age to talk to their body. Last night, E, her daughter, had a tummy ache in the middle of the night. I asked her to listen to her tummy's voice and see what it was trying to tell her. She paused and then said it was telling her it was scared of the storm. The framing of physical pain as your body talking to you is a game changer for kids. And I also swear by putting an onion in the bedroom when they're ill. Amy said, not giving my kids sugar or screens to pacify. In fact, the opposite. When they're sad or angry or upset, I explain it's not used in these moments and why. Bron says, mainly the good old homeopathic box that goes pretty much everywhere with us and has meant that between us, we've only used conventional medicine a couple of times in 8 years. Mariella says, my top 3 are hide all the good foods that they won't eat and the stuff that they do eat. I have very fussy eaters, and this is the only way I can make sure they're getting some of what they need. Regular exercise and activities consistently. Mine are both like completely different children after going to the gym, football, dancing, or even a walk outside. Herbs, herbal teas, tinctures, and at the first sign of anything alongside homeopathy, they now come and ask me for them, and my daughter will often say, I'm just grabbing an Apis from the box because I'm itching. And the last one is from Jo. She says, for me, I give them liposomal vitamin C, homeopathy, loads of essential oils and Reiki, bath in oils and salts, but cannot get them to take my flu buster mixture. They heave. Thankfully, they're pretty into healthy foods and open to trying new stuff. It's not easy all the time, but we try when we can. So I did say, I hope I've covered everything. And I think the one thing I didn't cover that I'll very quickly touch on is I mentioned about my son's food challenges. The thing, and I know there'll be loads of you listening to this having the same situation and being grateful to hear that someone who's a health coach has this. But what I've learned to do, because I believe that everything is energy, literally everything is energy. So what I have learned to do is literally speak to his food. So before I hand anything over to him, even if it's like fish fingers and chips, I'll literally say to the food, please let this nourish his body. And I'll put love into any food that I'm making for him. So when I'm making him anything from scratch, like, you know, whatever it is that he might, the few things that he eats, I'll make sure that I'm putting good energy into it, changing the structure of the food, literally the energetic structure of it. Like, we know that our energy can change water and change the structure of water, and everything's pretty much made from water. So I do that, and I try to put the energy, my energy, into his food and talk positively to him about food. So, you know, where in the past I might have given him shame around it, like, why won't you eat this? And so eats this. Why can't you eat these things? I'm not trying to tell him that what he's eating, it's fine to eat like this, but I'm also not making it negative. So instead of talking negatively about his food, what I will do is just continue to educate him on food outside of his own meals. So if I'm making something for myself, I'll be like, oh, have a look at this ingredient, Brax. It's super cool. This is what this does for us. And this is how it helps the immune system, or, you know, whatever it might be. And that's kind of how I've learned to manage this situation with him. So that's it. Those are my top tips for raising children holistically. And I hope this has helped you. I hope that hasn't overwhelmed you. One thing at a time. Okay, one thing at a time. Rome wasn't built in a day. So I do hope that it has inspired you and given you some drive to raise your kids as holistically as possible. And if you do have any questions about it, or you want to know more, feel free to email support@laurenvakneen.co.uk. Or if you want to take this one step further yourself so that you know how to implement all this stuff into your life step by step, you'll know the deal. You can go to my Rise membership, laurenvakneen.co.uk/rise. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, for being here to expand and rise yourself, because that helps us heal the collective. So thank you. I am grateful for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Reconditioned. I am honestly so grateful to each and every person that tunes in. Thank you also for taking responsibility for your own well-being. You should know that just by choosing to listen to podcasts like this that further your well-being, you're moving more deeply into abundance consciousness. Now, don't forget, I have a bunch of free resources over at laurenvakneen.co.uk, as well as every recommendation you could ever need in regards to your well-being on the LV Recommends page, all categorized for your ease. Thank you also to our sponsors. These episodes would not be possible without them, so make sure to check them out and get some pretty awesome discounts on the show notes. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get updated each time a new one is released. Thank you. I appreciate you.